Hello everyone and welcome to episode 1, where we go through every year from 1958 to 1999 in episode 1, and then next episode 2, would be going through 2000 to 2021. So I just wanted to clarify that because I didn't realize in the video that this is going to be two parts, because the video ended up being so long that I just had to split it into 2 parts. So I already have both of them filmed, so they'll both come out very soon. Next episode should come out next week if you're watching this video. By the day it came out, if not the week after, but it's coming out very soon, so I'm working my butt off on these, so stay tuned for that. Hello everybody, and today we're going to be looking at, I decided to just do a bit of a random video on, we're going to be looking at the best Nintendo game, rather, of every year. Nintendo's been a thing. Except for, I'm going to be going every single year, video games have been created, at least before Nintendo, because Nintendo technically first started developing games in 1977 with the color TV game, but we're going to be going through the years before that too. I'm just not going to be saying Nintendo games for those years. I'm just going to be instead going over the other series games. So we're going to start off all the way back in 1958 and go forward from there, and then I'm just going to be telling you the best game of each year. 1958. So we start off with 1958, and this was the first year gaming was created. Now, before we get into this, I just gotta say that Pong was not the first game ever created. People think that, and yes, I know I'm in my pajamas, but still. Pong was not the first game to ever develop. It was the first game to ever, kind of the first game. It was kind of the first game that was, created. You can play and buy. But the first game ever created was Tennis for Two back in 1958, which was 14 years before Pong. Yes, 14 years before Pong was developed in 1972. So, essentially, that was the first game. Tennis for Two. It was an old tennis game it was just developed. There's not really much to say about it. It was kind of just a tennis game, and it was really bad. So yeah. 1962. Now, as you can tell, we jumped ahead 4 years, because really in 1959, 1960, and 1961, they didn't really develop any games over those time periods. So when we get to 1962, we're going to go with Space War. Now, Space War obviously was, I think, the only game developed in 1962. Don't quote me on that. I'm not very knowledgeable with these. This is just my internet researches. Put on to this. So, 1962, we got Space War. I know nothing about the game, so we're moving on. 1971. Alright, that's the last time we're skipping around. So now we're up 9 years forward. So we went from 1958 to 1962, 1971. Now we're into the 1970s. Gaming becomes a thing. Not a huge thing, but it becomes a thing. With 1971, we have computer space. Now, I'm not 100% sure on facts about this one either. I just know that it existed and it was a game. Computer space, it was called Computer Space, and it was developed in 1971. Honestly, as you can tell, I don't really have much to say about these really old games, because a lot of these really old games I honestly know nothing about, so I can't really tell you much about them, and I didn't really write down anything about the facts, so really it's 1971, so that's Computer Space, and that's really it. 1972. Alright, then we get on to 1972, which was the release of the Magnavox Odyssey, which was the first game console ever created back in 1972, and it had the best game in 1972. Easily was Pong. I think that goes without saying, because Pong was literally the first main game ever created, because those other games weren't really for sale. You couldn't buy them. But Pong released the Magnavox Odyssey back in 1972. And it was basically the first game that was really ever mainstream. Everyone knows what Pong is. There's literally two rectangles, and you you sling a square back and forth, and if you get on your side, you win, or whatever. It's kind of weird. 1973. Now, 1973, coming up next, we have Space Race, a game called Space Race. Honestly, again, not too sure what this released on. It might have been the Magnavox Odyssey. I don't know what it was. Again, I was just Googling games that came out these years, and then the best rated one was apparently Space Race. So, at least for the 1970s, I'm not too sure on these games. But, yeah, Space Race in 1973. Not too sure about the game. I'm pretty sure you race in space, most likely. So, that's just really what that is. So, yeah. 1974. I get to 1974. Now, this was when... crap, I didn't even write down anything for 1974. Alright, we're skipping 1974. No one cares. This year sucks. I'm sorry if you like that year. You know, they had games, alright? They had some games. I'm gonna put an update right now. Alright, you heard what future me said about 1974, because apparently past me did not realize to put anything down. I put down a Wild Gunman, but that did not release in 1974. That released in 1976. So I'm an idiot. 1975. So now we get to 1975. We're halfway done with the 1970s. So we have Evr Race. Now, you might have heard of Evr Race before. Again, not sure what this game is, but it existed and it was kind of popular. But I think I actually heard of this game beforehand, before Googling this stuff. I actually heard of this game, and it was alright. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta say about it. 1976. 1976 was when the first Nintendo game was ever developed, so now we get to Nintendo stuff. And it's Wild Gunman. Obviously, the first ever Nintendo game to be done. I just bit my tongue. That hurt. Ow. Anyway, so yeah, Wild Gunman released in 1976 for the... I'm not too sure what it released on, because the color TV game didn't exist back then. It released in 1977, so I'm not too sure what Wild Gunman released on. But it was a game. It did exist, and it was the first ever developed Nintendo game, and I think you basically shoot stuff. So yeah, it's just on here because it was the first ever developed Nintendo game, and since it was the first ever Nintendo game, it's going to be ranked here because it was the first one. All the games we have today, our Nintendo games that we have today, started with Wild Gunman back in 1976. So that was the first one. It's most important to history. Probably not the most important to Nintendo's history, but one of the most important because it pretty much started it all, even though Nintendo was eventually invented back in 1889. And this was developed in 1976. It was the first video game that they developed, so it's going here for those specific reasons. 1977. Alright, now 1977 marks the release of Nintendo's first console. They partnered with some company, I don't know what company it was, but they partnered with a company. It wasn't just Nintendo that did this, but they developed the Color TV game and released in 1977. And along with the Color TV game, they launched one of the best title that came along with it in 1977 was easily Battleshark. Honestly, I don't know why I said easily, because I have no idea what this game is. But it was the best rated on the list. So, Battleshark apparently was on, I don't even know if it was on the Color TV game. It might have been for the arcade, I don't know. But it was probably the arcade. Could have been, because the Color TV game did not have that much impressive games back then, because that was kind of stupid. So, you know, Battleshark, 1978. Now, if you're still watching this and didn't turn away because I keep saying I don't know for crap, listen up, I was lazy and didn't want to write a script for this entire thing, so I didn't know. So anyway, 1978. Gaming is becoming a thing now. This is the year Space Invaders came out, which was a huge game. This was the first real huge successful game. It was easily Space Invaders in the arcade back in 1978, which was actually released kind of weirdly, because I always thought it was like in 1980s. It was released in the 1980s, but it wasn't. It was actually released in 1978. But anyways, there were four Nintendo games released for the Color TV game back in 1978. And I think it was a color TV game. It might have been arcade, but there were 4 games, Nintendo games released in 1978, that we really need to talk about that are really worth mentioning for the list, which is Block Fever, Computer Othello, Fancy Ball, and Test Driver. Now, all of these games obviously ranked very well on the poll, or not poll, the whatever the website. I don't know what website I got these from, but I basically Googled them. It might have been Wikipedia, I don't know, maybe Polygon, something like that. Even though Polygon sucks because they lie about how to get Animal Crossing bugs and fish. So yeah, don't listen to Polygon. If you're trying to get bugs and fish, do not listen to Polygon. It sucks. But anyway, I might have listened to them. It might have been a wiki or something. But whatever I got this on, the best game out of those was probably Computer Othello. Now the thing about this game is, they're not, again, I don't know much about it. I don't know. But it was the highest rated out of these 4 games, so it's definitely going to be put there. Again, I don't know if it's on the arcade or the whatever it's called, color TV game. I don't know if it's on either one of those two, but it's not really, you know. Again, a lot of these games do not hold up in 2021, so I just gotta throw that out there because essentially they just don't. So a lot of these games suck. If you play them today, they suck, like absolutely suck. I've never played any games from, a lot of games I have not played from the 1970s. I played Pong and then Space Invaders, and I think that's it. Unless there was any other popular arcade game. Because I don't actually know when Galaga was released, but I feel like it was 80s. Or 1980s. I need to be more specific. Anyways, here's the lesson with life, alright? When people say, here's Mr. Newman, I was born in 66. Well, you didn't specify you were born in 66? Okay, what could that mean? That could mean 1966, that mean 1866, 1766. What does it mean? So when you say 66, they mean 1966, but the thing is, he said 66, he was born in 66. Does that mean he was born in the year 66 AD? Maybe. So if people say the year and they don't say 19 or 18 or 17 or whatever in front of it, they mean that year. Just assume it. Just be like that. It's funny, okay? They were born in 66 AD, not 1966. Or whatever the year may be. 1979. Alright, back on topic with the video. 1979, we have Radar Scope. Now, this was a pretty famous arcade game for Nintendo. It was not very successful, but basically what you did is you rode in a spaceship. Why is there a scratch on my arm? You rode in a spaceship and then shot stuff down. It was kind of like a Galaga ripoff, for the most part. I know I've seen videos of this game, very slim ones, but I never really actually played this game. But back in 1979, this was honestly a really fail for Nintendo. This was their first, but this was Nintendo's first actual developed game that was just them, because all the other games we listed before were partnered with other companies. This is the first Nintendo-only development game back in 1979 with Radar Scope. It was the first one, so it's going in there. Because with the Wild Gunman and all the other ones that they released back from 1976, 1976, 1977, and 1978 were all partnered. But now in 1979, developed at least as far as I'm aware. So yeah, 1980. Alright, now we're entering the 1980s. The 1980s was really the first big push for gaming. Now, gaming did exist in the 1970s with Atari and Magnavox and color TV gaming crap, but a lot of those, no offense to people that played back then, suck. 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 So it did lead to the eventual gaming crash of 1983. We'll get into that later. But they did, in 1980, this was the year Pac-Man came out, gaming becomes a thing. Pac-Man releases in May. Nintendo decided to step up their game. You know, it's a new decade, man. They need to hit out of the park with the 1980s. So they released their first system, which is actually a handheld system, which was the Game & Watch. Now, the funny thing is, the origin of the Game & Watch is actually funny. The person that invented the Game & Watch actually was inspired by someone. They were at a train station, I think. Some station. Was it an airport or train station? I think it was a train station. And they saw this guy playing with a calculator. And it just sparked the idea of a Game & Watch. Or, no. It might have been a watch. He might have been playing with his watch or his calculator or something. I think it was something like that. It was a calculator or a watch. He was playing with it. And then that sparked the idea of Game & Watch. So they released Game & Watch. And the Game & Watch had a ton of games on it, which were all just called Game & Watch. They didn't really have games. There was like an octopus one, so that's why the Game & Watch as a whole was the best game of 1980 for Nintendo. All the Game & Watch games, pretty much putting them all in here, because that was really all note that Nintendo released in 1980, because other than the Game & Watch, if Game & Watch didn't release, Nintendo in 1980 would have sucked. Because they didn't release anything other than the Game & Watch. If they did, it was a stupid arcade game or a stupid color TV game that sucked. So that was at least not notable at all. So that goes for 1980. 1981. Alright, now we get to 1981. Now this is the year. This is without question. This is Nintendo's oldest franchise that still exists today, Donkey Kong. Now Donkey Kong released in 1981 on the arcade. Originally, this was the best hit Nintendo has ever made up to that point in time in 1981. Since Nintendo started with gaming back in 1976, they finally hit it out of the park with Donkey Kong in 1981. Now, Donkey Kong was obviously a game developed by Shigeru Miyamoto, which was brand new at the time to game development. And at the time, he developed Donkey Kong, and it was inspired off of Popeye. So there was three characters. You had Mario, which was actually called Jumpman. Then you had Donkey Kong, and then you had Lady, which grown into Pauline. So Pauline, Mario, and Donkey Kong, even though it was Jumpman and Lady. But I think his actual name, Jumpman, wasn't actually his original name. His original intended name was actually Mr. Mustache. A lot of you don't know that, but that was Mario, and then eventually going into Mario, Pauline, and Donkey Kong being the first three Nintendo characters that actually still exist today. So this is the longest living Nintendo franchise that still exists today. The most recent installment, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, released in 2014, and then the remake in 2018. So it pretty much is still alive, and he's still in Smash and stuff. So longest living character, if you don't count Mr. Game & Watch, yes, Mr. Game & Watch can be controversial as the most longest living game character, because Donkey Kong was created in 1981, and then Game & Watch in 1980, but Game & Watch is in Smash, but they haven't developed any Game & Watch games since the original Game & Watch, so I think Donkey Kong is the safest bet for the oldest living character. Like North America, Donkey Kong hit it out of the parks. It was one of the best games ever. It was the best game ever. I don't know if it was good as Pac-Man and Space Invaders, but it was definitely up there in most people's lists of the best game ever. It was okay in Japan, but I mean, it did well. It was really North America that this game really got its attention. 1982. And with 1982, Nintendo kind of failed. They had such a good rhythm going in 1981 with the Donkey Kong game. So they make a sequel to it, which was Donkey Kong Jr., which is what I'm putting here in 1982. The main reason I'm not putting anything else for 1982 is because 1982 had almost nothing for Nintendo. They were just slacking like dogs. Like dogs on a ride with a side of mayonnaise with ketchup and relish and mustard and silverware with dipped in ketchup while eating ketchup in history class watching a Civil War movie, and then getting in trouble by the teacher and having to go to my locker and forget my packet, and then coming back in and throwing it away, and then playing Mario Kart 64 the rest of the time. That is how bad Nintendo's 1982 was. Donkey Kong Jr., sequel to Donkey Kong, Donkey Kong Jr., which is Donkey Kong's son, saved Donkey Kong for Mario, or Jumpman, or Mr. Mustache, whatever the heck his name was at the time. captured him and put him in a cage. So yeah. And there was Donkey Kong Jr. Math, which was a sequel to that, which sucks because it's a math game. And Nintendo, you do not combine education and entertainment. It does not work. You tried it once, do not try it again. I know you haven't for like 40 years, but okay, 39, but still. 1983. Now we get to 1983, which the great video game crash happened. Which basically, here's the deal, from 1983 to 1985, 1983, 1984, 1985, basically a crash happened where people stopped buying video game systems because they were too overpriced for very bad games on the systems. And pretty much for those 3 years, stores wouldn't stock video games anymore. So it was kind of hard for people to play them. Since stores wouldn't stock them anymore, it was kind of interesting because I don't know how back then. I wasn't around back then, so I don't know how they got the games, but they somehow did. And I don't know how they still released games back then, but the best game in 1983 was easily Mario Bros. For the arcade. This was another arcade title. This was back in the early 1980s, so in the early 1980s, the arcades were popping, man. These were the big hit things. Console gaming wasn't too big back in the early 1980s. As big as arcades were back then. So a lot of these old games are arcade the best games on them. So anyways, we got Mario Bros. In 1983. Obviously, this is the first real multiplayer game where you had 2 players on one screen. And basically you play as Mario or Luigi, and then there's a power block in the middle, and you have to come and kill, there's 4 different enemies. You have the shell creepers, sidesteppers, fighter flies, and the freezy looking thing. And you basically have to jump under the thing, and then you hop up and then kick them, and then they die. And then you come back on the stage. But this was the first, like, Mario. I think this was when they actually started calling it Mario. A waste of Mario because my vocal cords are hurting very bad, and we're only in 1983, so I'm screwed. Hurt. Probably shouldn't have done that. But yeah, that's 1983 for you. On the NES Online, I've actually made it to phase like 40 something, like phase like 44 or something like that. Something crazy. I made it to like 40 phases. I mean, obviously I use rewind because if I didn't use rewind, I probably would have got that part. But without rewind, I actually have gotten to like phase 10, which is actually not bad. But I consider myself to be pretty good at this game. So that's really all I gotta say about Mario Bros. 1984. I forgot to say back in 1983, that was the year that Nintendo released the Famicom in Japan. I'm gonna sit on my Lego NES box. They released the Famicom, and alright, I'm not sitting on that because I'm about to fall into it. Anyway, they released the Famicom in Japan in 1983. And one of the games on the Famicom they released in 1984 was Duck Hunt. Duck Hunt, obviously, was the first release of Duck Hunt. I know it released in North America in 1985, but I'm going by the first releases here, not the North American ones. So, 1984, we got Duck Hunt. Obviously, this was a game back in the 1980s. It was really easy, and it was fun because you basically hold the zapper. Actually, I got the zapper right here. Actually, no, I don't. I don't know where it is. Oh, yeah, here it is. The NES zapper right here. This is when they released this. I mean, it wasn't really on the NES because the NES didn't exist. But originally, when the NES did come out in 1985, they did this one. This is kind of going by the 1985 version. I know this came out in 1984, but we're going with the 1985 version because that's the one I'm most familiar with. And you took this gun, then you shot it at the screen and shoot ducks. You get 3 tries. If you fail all 3 tries, you lose. But the real catch with this one was, back in the 1980s, the TVs were designed in such a way where you could just literally hold the gun right up to the screen and shoot it. It was so easy, and that was probably the most cheap way to win. But the thing is, if you try to hook up an NES and play Duck Hunt on a 2021 edition TV, flat screen TV, it does not go so well. The TVs are not designed the same way they were back in 1984, so they don't really work. Like, at all. I mean, your aiming is, like, off, like, completely. So, that's just how that thing works, and, yeah, so let's shoot the duck. Yeah, there we go. 1985. 1985. Now, obviously, we talked about the video game crash earlier. This was obviously still going on in early 1985. And this was the year that Nintendo released the NES. Now, the reason the Nintendo Entertainment System, the NES, released in North America was basically the American version of the Famicom, and it pretty much saved video games as a whole because Nintendo did a clever strategy at marketing this thing. They marketed it as a toy and not a video game. So stores would stock it, since it was marketed as a toy. Stores would stock this thing on toy shelves. That way, people bought it. And then when they did buy it, it released with games such as Super Mario Bros. You called it best game of 1985. And this game launched with the NES. People bought the system and played Mario Bros. On it. It was so good that stores decided to stock video games again because Nintendo pretty much saved video games as a whole because the chance they wouldn't really exist right now if it wasn't for this. So that honestly just helps it at all. And obviously the first side-scroller, I think, platformer, 2D side-scrolling platformer, I think, ever made. If not, it was definitely the first good one. Introducing Bowser and Peach, and what you did was you play through levels, and it would scroll through as you walked through, and then you could jump and shoot fireballs if you got the fire flower power up. And it was basically Mario Bros. On steroids back then. So that was a good game. Still to this day holds up. Yes, the controls can be a little wonky, and the jumping physics kind of suck for today's standards. But back in 1985, man, this game was the best. Probably the best game ever made. The best game. Not a Nintendo game ever made, and that would hold true for probably a couple of years. 1986. And we are going with 1986 because this is the year that Nintendo in Japan was really good. Now, I'm going by Japan releases, not North American releases, because I know a lot of these games I'm talking about. But here's the thing about Japan in 1986. 1986 released 3 big games on the NES. You had Metroid, the original Zelda, and Kid Icarus. All amazing games, especially for their time. I know they all released in 1987 in North America, but they did have it released in 1986 in Japan. I'm going by the 1986 release. This is probably the best year of the 1980s for Nintendo, easily as for quality and quantity of games. And then obviously 1987 for North America was pretty much 1986, but for Japan we're going with 1986. And out of all these 3 games I just listed, the best out of those was easily Metroid for me. Here's my big deal, okay? I never really played Kid Icarus much, so that's out. Here's the thing. Here's my thing about the original Zelda. I don't like the original Zelda. I really don't, man. It's stupid. I have a few reasons for that. My main reason is you can't save the game. So every time on the NES, you can't save your game. The only way you're going to be able to beat the game is you're going to have to grind for a couple hours playing this trash game. And second, because the NES didn't involve save, and don't say in the comments, well, you can just use the NES online. Yeah, you couldn't do that back then. Anyway, and it's just freaking hard, man. Ishii Aonuma, the creator of, the main developer of Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, can't even beat this game without a guide, he's said several times. So that just goes to show that this game is hard. Like, it's really hard, and it's to the point where it's not fun. I can get past maybe the first dungeon, and that's it. So the reason I put Metroid as the best game, Metroid's the best game because it was the first Metroidvania, I think so. It was the first game in the Metroidvania genre, which was actually, it was either this or Castlevania, but I'm not too sure if Castlevania, when it came out, it might have been before or after this, but that's why it was called Metroidvania, because it was Castlevania and Metroid. They were kind of like both interesting. It was a 2D side-scroller, but it wasn't a platformer, and it was kind of a little bit complex, but it was kind of fun. I've never really beaten this game, but it is very fun, and I actually put for about 2 hours straight, which is actually pretty impressive for someone that has grown up playing like 2010s games and 2020s games and just plays new games all the time. This spending 2 hours on a game that was made in 1986 is actually pretty impressive, because a lot of times when I play games back then I get bored and then just want to play something else. I play for maybe 30 minutes and then get bored, maybe even less than that. 30 minutes and then get bored and then just want to play a new game or get something to eat or something like that. 1987. Now for 1987 with original releases, we have Punch-Out on the NES. Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, whatever. I actually have a Punch-Out poster thing that was actually signed by Mike Tyson himself, which was actually pretty cool. I don't know where it is, but Punch-Out, definitely the best game. Now, I know it did get really good for back in the day. This was the best game in 1987, in my opinion, because it really was... I know Punch-Out's not like the best game ever, but it was definitely... If you've never played Punch-Out, you need to play it, because it's actually really good. If you actually get into it, it's actually a really good game. Now, if you just spam punching, it's not going to work. There's actually strategy to this game, and it's actually really impressive for an NES game to have this much in-depth strategy in a game that feels like it was created way later than this, and it's actually really cool, because I actually went back after playing the Wii remake. I never liked the one on the NES until I played the Wii remake, which is actually pretty much the exact same game. And then I went back and played the NES one, and it's actually really good because it's almost the exact same game, and I know what I'm doing. When you don't know what you're doing, the game sucks. You're used to the controls and stuff, and you have to dodge and stuff. But once you get that down, it's actually really good. It's a really good game. Now, I know a lot of people aren't gonna like it, are probably not gonna agree with that, but I think Punch-Out, if you give it a chance, man, just give it a chance. It's a great game. 1988. Of course, it's Super Mario Bros. 3. Was this any question? Like, seriously? Mario Bros. 3, easily the best game in 1988. I mean, just goes to show. The best game on the NES, I'm not even joking when I say that. It is pretty much everything Super Mario Bros. Had, and just makes it even better. With a new world map, new power-ups, new enemies, new bosses. It just expands. It's just so good. It was the best NES game, one of the best 2D platformers. It's a great game. It's not in my top 10 favorite Mario games, but it is a great, fantastic game that definitely deserves to be the best game of 1988. 1989. Now with 1989, we have the second handheld. We had the launch of the Game Boy in 1989. And here's kind of the bad part about 1989. Nintendo did so well in 1988 with Super Mario Bros. 3 that in 1989, they kind of screwed it all up. They released the Game Boy, and they didn't really do anything else. Which is why the best game in 1989 was probably Super Mario Land. Now, I played this game on a school computer, and it's kind of like the original Super Mario Bros., except it's a little worse. I kind of hate this game in a way because the ball flower mechanic sucks, and it has that stupid thing that Super Mario Bros. Had where you get hit when you have a ball flower and you go little. Why do you go little? You should get big. You should just lose the suit like you do in the new games. It's stupid because even in Mario Bros. 3, it didn't do that. But this game came in 1989, which was a year after Mario Bros. 3 came out, and they still carry this over from Super Mario Bros., which kind of sucks because I hate this mechanic so much. Probably the best game in 1989, because Nintendo wasn't really releasing anything in 1989, so you pretty much only had the option to play this. I mean, what else are you going to play? Tetris? Ugh. 1990. It's a new decade with the 1990s. 1990, Nintendo decides this is a new decade. Gaming is actually becoming a big thing nowadays, so we need to release something huge. Now, this is the year they released the SNES, not the SNES in America, but the Super Famicom. Along with the release of the Super Famicom, they definitely delivered with their new decade thing with Super Mario World, easily the best game of 1990. And so I know it came out in 1991 in North America, but as we stated before, I'm doing the first release of the game. Yeah, Mario World, easily, there's nothing I need to say about this game. This game is absolutely amazing. It's a 2D Mario game, which, I mean, that was literally the best thing back then. So Mario World just blew it out of the parks, man. This game is awesome. 1991, I decided to put Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past on here. Now, I didn't really play this game too much, but a lot of the stuff Nintendo released in 1991 was kind of mediocre. They didn't release much of anything. So I wasn't a huge fan of Zelda: Link to the Past. A lot of the older Zelda games I don't like too much, but I just decided to put this here just because I didn't really have anything else to put here, and I did play this one a little bit. No, it wasn't a bad game per se. I just didn't get too into it, man. 1992. We get to 1992, which easily was Super Mario Kart was the best game in 1992 because Super Mario Kart, one of my favorite franchises ever made, or sub-series, I guess, is the Mario Kart series, which you can tell by my Mario Kart 9 prediction series. Sorry I haven't posted a new episode on that series in a long time. Super Mario Kart was obviously the first one back in 1992, which was the first Mario Kart installment, which was actually really good. 1993. So 1993 had a lot of games that were kind of mediocre for Nintendo, and at least in the SNES, which were Kirby's Adventure, Star Fox, Mario All-Stars, and Mario's Time Machine. Now, Mario's Time Machine was absolutely terrible, and if you don't know anything about it, I suggest after this video you go do some research about it. The game was terrible, and I kind of want to see a new version of Mario's Time Machine, because it had the potential to be a great game, but it just wasn't. And Mario All-Stars is a good game and all. It was just a port of Mario Bros. 1, 2, 3, and Lost Levels, which were all games that originally came out, so it's nothing new. I hate the Star Fox series, so let's just get this crap out of here. So really, it was Kirby's Adventure. And Kirby's Adventure, I mean, it was okay at best. Kirby games are obviously nothing amazing, but this game was pretty good for its time. The first Kirby game on a home console, and it released actually on the NES, not the SNES. So that was kind of interesting. In 1993, honestly, really late to release an NES game. I don't know why they didn't just make this on the SNES, Sakurai. And yes, Sakurai developed this one. Sakurai, I don't know, you confuse me. Even back in the 1990s, man, you confuse me. Like, what the heck, Sakurai? Really late in the NES's life cycle. It was kind of weird, but that's what they did, and I mean, it was a good game. So, I can't get mad at that. 1994. Now in 1994, easily the best game, one of the best games on the NES, on the SNES, was definitely Donkey Kong Country. And I think any sane person would agree with me that Donkey Kong Country was the best game in 1994. The best video game in 1994. Rare at the time developed this game, and this game looked really good for 1994. Like, I'm not even joking. This game looked amazing. It just like expanded, because all the other games back then were like really bad, and they didn't really I mean, they looked okay, but this one like really looked good, especially for a game on the SNES. My God, this game looks amazing. The gameplay's pretty solid. Obviously 2D platformers obviously were the big thing back then, and they did amazing. 1995, we have Yoshi's Island, which is Super Mario World 2. Obviously, it was a good game. Not really much else to say. It was a platformer where he plays Yoshi, and they didn't release much else in 1995 that was good, so that's why I put that there. It was a pretty solid game overall. 1996. 1996, easily the launch of the Super Nintendo, or not the Super Nintendo, the N64, which released in 1996. Oh God. 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 Coughing. And obviously the best game on it was Super Mario 64. It was a launch title in Mario 64. Now, this game was honestly amazing. I don't need to go into detail on this one, because this game honestly was the best game probably of the 1900s. Not even gonna lie. It was the first 3D Mario game, first 3D platformer, and I think the first 3D game ever. Not too sure on that though. I don't know if the PlayStation came before or after. I think the PlayStation came out in 1997 or maybe 1998. Either way, it was one of the first ones, and it gets credit for that. And it was definitely the best game of 1996. One of the most important games in gaming history, in Nintendo history. 1997. Now we get to 1997, and I decided to put Kirby's Dreamland 3 here because, honestly, 1997, man, was kind of disappointing for Nintendo. They didn't really release anything much of note. The only real game they released was Kirby's Dreamland 3, which was kind of okay at best. And as we discussed before, Kirby games are kind of sucky. I mean, they're not sucky per se. They just kind of are like not as good as other games. They're just kind of just there. I mean, they're good games and all. I'm just not much of a Kirby guy in general. I do like the Kirby series, but a lot of the games on there, on the Kirby series, are like they're just like standard platformers, man. Like you can't get mad at them. They're not bad games, but they're not good games. Like they're not great games. Because they are good games. It's something to ride home about. Like I played Kirby's Dreamland 3. It's the best game ever. My favorite game. 1998. Now this was easily the entire list my most controversial pick for 1998. Man, you guessed it. It's Legend of Zelda. I'm just kidding. It's not Ocarina of Time. I never played Ocarina of Time. Don't kill me. Hold your fire, people. Hold it. Hold it right there. I see you holding up that. I can explain. Okay, you can't even see me. I can explain. I never played this game. I'm sorry I haven't. Which is why I put Mario Party here. Yes, I picked Mario Party over Ocarina of Time. Don't kill me. I know I probably lost like 50 people there. It's alright, okay? Mario Party is a good game. It's a real bull game. And that's all I gotta say about it. 1999. Now for the last game of the 1900s, we have 1999 starting with Super Smash Bros. N64. Easily the first game of the Smash Bros. Series, which obviously Smash, the best series ever made. It's freaking Smash. Like it's amazing. So, you know, Smash Bros. It's awesome. Doesn't hold up very well for the newer games, but at the time, I bet it was amazing. My vocal cords hurt. Like, hurt. I don't know why, but they hurt. So I'm going to take a break from filming. And I'm finished the rest tomorrow, and I'm not going to be in my pajamas. I'm actually going to be in clothes. So see you guys tomorrow. Which is not really tomorrow. Which is future me, which will be present me when I'm filming it, and then past me when you're watching it. It's weird. But anyway, see you then. And I'll cover 2000 to 2021.